Incremental routines. So now that we have seen what's the ultimate goal of learning with SuperMemo, let's compare that with other situations. We have the learning journey of just normal, traditional learning methods, Anki in the sense of any spaced repetition software, and SuperMemo in the sense of incremental reading. So let's compare them. Let's assume four hypothetical people, four individuals. So a normal person who has no system at all. Studies casually, reads occasionally, but there's no formal approach to review, as needed. Then you have a traditional learner who emulates the school style, that highlights, rereads, cramps for tests, and so on. Then we have an Anki user who uses flashcards and spaced repetition, and focus on question and answers or close solutions. That's a stereotype. I know that some Anki users do multiple choice questions. That's why I'm taking this out, not including multiple choice questions, which will be kind of slightly worse. And SuperMemo user that employs spaced repetition because it's a superset of incremental reading. So uses a dynamic scheduling of articles, facts, and so on. Not just the flashcards, but the reading, all of the entire learning process. So each approach shapes different day-to-day habits and yield distinct results over time. So we know already, in the previous video, what happens with SuperMemo. So what we will see is when the other people, learners, are limited. So let's start with the early stage. The time is very broad because it depends a lot on the person, but just some guidelines. But don't take this as a hardcore reference. So what a normal person will do on the first months after learning something? Reads or studies on impulse. Forgets a fair chunk of what has read, and not much stress, but also no systematic retention. There's no stress because it's not been long enough, but there's no systematic retention at all. Compare this that I go to the gym 1 day, 2 days, or a weekend, and that's it. I won't have any change in my body just for that, because I'm not systematic. Traditional learner uses underlying and repeated rereading, gains short-term memory for tests, but forget a lot afterward. So understands or not is not a requirement. The content is able to memorize the content, but after a while, a short term, it goes away. Because this content, this knowledge, has never been on the long-term memory. Never. Something will go to the long-term anyways, but it's just a very small percentage. Then we have the Anki user that quickly sets up flashcards, sees improved recall on discrete facts, isolated facts. So when I see the flashcard, the question, that's the answer. And invest daily in flashcard time, or let's say review time of flashcards. Then, what does the SuperMemo user do? Begins with incremental reading. Imports articles, breaks them into small extracts, those extracts into flashcards, and invests daily but sees varied content building cross-topic links because it's interleaving different topics, it's interleaving the reading, the recalling, and all of that, so the long-term memory, the passive review, and the novelty, so everything mixed together according to priorities. Then, what about in the middle stage, after 6 months or a year in the learning? The normal person who has no method at all may have read multiple books, but references or deeper details slip away. Then is, I read that, I forgot in which book or where I read that or exactly what it was. Let me Google it again. And remembers only the big picture stuff, or personally striking facts. Yeah, something that, it was, for whatever reason, it was memorable. Because you link that with personal experience in the past from you, or you feel attached for whatever reason. You have a personal attachment to that fact. Therefore, it was more memorable. But those are isolated facts. And then you get the big picture, like a movie you have seen or a book you have read many years ago. I felt that way, it was worth it, it goes the theme, perhaps some golden nuggets you remember, and everything else It's forgotten. Then you have the traditional learner who may accumulate lots of notes. It may be a note taker first. Then struggles with advanced recall or connecting older content and often rarer reads. So it's over and over and reads the same content because it has forgotten most of the content. Oh yeah, in statistics I did chi-squared. I remember in a blinding speed chi-square. I don't have to remember, but I forgot about the math about that. Oh wow. Every time that I had to do a paper on the PhD, is let me review that again, let me reread again because I forgot. Even though I have done this 3 times, since it only happens once after half a year, it's long enough that I keep forgetting every time. What an Anki user will do is the flashcards expand to a big deck, accumulates lots of flashcards. Stable and let's assume it's a good Anki user, by the way, and has well-formulated Q&As, or cross-deletions, but cannot easily integrate large reading content. This is what happened to me eventually after many years, that I have so much stuff to read that I'm losing track. Might get bored or overwhelmed by daily repetition. That's the thing. Because in Anki, what you do is just flashcards. There's no interleaving. You can interleave topics of the flashcards, but it's just flashcard, 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 unlike SuperMemo. Because the SuperMemo user, the knowledge web grows in multiple directions from reading widely. Consequence of interleaving. Micro and micro interleaving. That user gains surprising cross-domain insights. No one else has that. May also face backlog if not focusing on priority management, but still sees synergy among topics. Exactly. The SuperMemo user in 6 months or a year, it's enough that they won't finish the outstanding queue at all, but based on priorities, they will get the most value first. So there will be a backlog. But unlike the Anki user who has no power, you can have some conventions with decks, hierarchy of decks, but you have to do some kind of manually work, so you have some order, but then the order is by deck, is not per card, so you cannot fine-tune the priorities, unlike in incremental reading. And it's easy to get overwhelmed, and you get overwhelmed, you don't have a wise decision what flashcards you postpone, you do. So far, the SuperMemo user already has some advantage. You have a very overview because you are doing this incrementally. You don't do a source and you Ankify that source and you move on. And another source, Ankify in a linear fashion. You just do some pieces here, not necessarily even linearly, some pieces there, that article of that book, You change this down even to a sentence or a few sentences or a paragraph. You reprioritize that so it's not everything mixed by source, and then you do the flashcards, and then you reprioritize based on what you see you're lacking, So it's exactly very fine-tuned to your experience. Then, let's do some concrete examples. Remember this up to a year. So the normal person has the method, has just vague recollections of a few programming best practices, and forgot many details. That's it. The example is with coding. So the guy who did traditional method, like cramming and so on, rereads all notes for advanced coding tasks, ends up combining the same material repeatedly. Because it's enough, like for me, the chi-squared, that, oh yeah, I did that. I remember I did that, but I forgot the details, that how it's done, or the math, or whatever. So I have to check it again. The Anki user maintains robust memory for specific syntax and definition cards, let's say it's an example, but struggles with the bigger conceptual reading, the big picture, the apply that knowledge in a coherent manner, that all of the knowledge I have about coding helps me actually do that program, that piece of code, putting everything together and apply it. Lack of an integrated reading approach. More or less that's the problem. So I can recall the Anki user will recall facts in a split second, most of the time, not 100%, but 90 something percent, correctly, effortlessly, but that doesn't mean that can be put into practice to solve problems. And the SuperMemo user sees synergy. Reading an article about coding efficiency, let's say, triggers a memory from a math article from last week, forming an aha, an eureka moment about an algorithm optimization. Because you're reading so many things in parallel, and then you can see those connections, because you do interruption. Those other guys are doing interruption to some degree, but not as a feature. That's the key. Let's continue later stage. Then, after a year and up to 2 years, the normal person heavily relies on Google or reference for forgotten details, somewhat scattered knowledge. We could simplify that instead of remembering the content, memorize the way to get to that content. Hey, I don't know how it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, spelled Schwarzenegger, but I know that if I put 2 G's and H's, Google will tell me, hey, did you mean this? Here you go. So I remember how I get to the solution without remembering the solution per se. Or, oh yeah, I know that, more complex, that if I do this, I do Google, I will go to that page and the one that looks pink and that's where I have the solution. You will get to that kind of flow. Then the traditional learner, the crammer, let's say, still invests significant time rechecking older notes and textbooks, feels rusty about past subjects. That, once again, there's an improvement. Oh yeah, I did this 6 months ago, that C squared. Oh yeah, I did this 2 years ago, and 2 years ago includes the half year ago that I had to recheck that. But every time I'm a victim of forgetting, so I'm stuck. Every time I do the same cycle. And I will keep doing this as long as the interval is long enough that I will forget it. Since I don't have a spaced repetition, every time it's already half a year or 1 year, I will forget it every time. So the traditional learner, the path, the learning path, we achieved the end already. It's just repeating in cycles. There's nothing new. There will be nothing new for the end of life for this guy. Then, Anki user, what will do after 2 years? Has a well-reviewed deck of facts, good quality, and quick speed, recall for them, but seldom integrates knowledge from extensive reading beyond flashcards. Exactly. How many Anki users you have seen or you have heard, hey, I'm lacking the big picture? It's not because they are misusing, could also be the case. Keep in mind the Anki user, as the example, it's a good Anki user. It's not the average Anki user. It's above that. Even though it uses Anki in a good way, you are limited to spaced repetition. Spaced repetition is to remember what you have learned. The learning process is not in Anki. Depends what you do outside of Anki. So it depends of this guy, what he did. But we are assuming that this person is very good in Anki, but doesn't do anything else. Just Ankifies. So what will be the problem? Integrating the knowledge, putting it together and applying, having the knowledge network, and integrating everything and creating incrementally the big picture. Like if it was a coder, now I can code this piece of software because I learned all of the requirements, all of the prerequisites, and I think makes sense. The SuperMemo user will be able to do that, not the Anki user. So the SuperMemo user tends to have a stronger mental framework, what I just did, across various domains. Imagine, even if the intensity is coding, there will be mathematics and some other stuff. Incremental reading fosters bridging topics. It's like a side effect that you cannot avoid, but it's something positive. It's something you don't want to avoid. The SuperMemo user learns to filter out trivial or disliked items over time. So the daily practice is relevant and fun. Exactly. Because since you do all of that, practice all of those, you will notice that, hey, this item is irrelevant. I'm not applying, even though it could be useful, or I thought it will be useful. Turns out During the first year, I thought it would be useful. But during the second year, I noticed that I'm not applying that knowledge. Here you go. Sayonara. I don't need that item. It's wasting my time. But in Anki, the Anki user, yeah, since it's not putting anything together, there's no, this mental framework is not being developed or not in a proper manner. You just don't know. And I have this on the queue. It's do. Let's do it because it's do. Kind of thing. Let's do a more concrete example. Up to the second year. So the normal guy forgets advanced math once they have studied. Yeah, I used to know that this, and this is my example. I actually did computer science in university, which I give up. It's not computer science per se, like in the US. It's more computer engineering, closer to electric engineering, with all of the hardware, circuits, all of this. But the intensity is programming this, not the hardware. I did a lot of math in university, and oh yeah, quadratic things, I did that. Oh yeah, integral, I did that. But I used to know that. I'm clueless. Clueless. I won't be able to solve anything now. And something I know, it will be anecdotal. When I was a normal, traditional student. Then, traditional student, what happens? Deeply depends on the notes. Might need hours of refreshing if a new project demands all knowledge. Is what will happen to me now. Because I was doing this, traditional learning, is, oh wow, let me check my notes, the books I had, what I did, and I will need hours of refreshing. It's not refreshing, it's just relearning. It's doing the entire process once again. It's super time consuming. The Anki user, instead, will have a good recalling of the flashcard content, but less strong reading new articles systematically. That, hey, what I have chosen to remember, I'm remembering it, I haven't forgotten that, but perhaps I still have holes, because you're only doing flashcards, remembering isolated facts. And the SuperMemo user has an integrated approach. So new articles referencing old content spark immediate recollections or deeper expansions. Exactly. So going back to Anki, user is, oh yeah, I have a new article, a new source. Yeah, it's mentioning this. I know the this concept in coding or this in mathematics, but I still I don't have this awareness because I don't at the same degree as the SuperMemo user. Because I don't have a clear framework, mental framework, that everything makes sense always. It's constant. All of the connections. In Anki, you're not building the big picture in the same manner. So the SuperMemo user is, oh yeah, that's a new article, and immediately, as I'm reading, I activate the mental models, and oh, this is new. Or hey, this is contradicting what I know. So for whatever reason, it's in a different way. Hey, it's because something is wrong. That article is wrong. Am I wrong? Did I make a mistake? What happens is that I have an immediate recollection and deeper expansions. And expands dendritically. As much as I want, I will get more. The SuperMemo user will get more knowledge. Then, changes in the lifestyle and mindset for the SuperMemo user. If we compare with everyone else. And hence curiosity. Since reading widely, daily, or very often, in small increments fosters the learning drive that rarely stalls. There's always some novelty. The other guys are rereading every time. They are seeing the same content once again. The SuperMemo users don't. Priority based. The SuperMemo user gains skill in discarding or postponing low-value material, focusing on what truly matters. You get the most value first, then diminishing returns. The other, especially the first one, the normal and the traditional guy, they don't know. They didn't prioritize at all before. So once they came across something, oh shoot, I forgot, they will just go back to the sources without the priority and go through most of the stuff once again. Super time consuming and extremely inefficient. Third, reduce burnout because you don't have all of this reading and all of that. The time allocated to the most engaging reading. The time allocated is to the most engaging reading or essential tasks first. You do less repetition, less mindless repetition. That, oh, once again, let me go through all of this, what the chi-square was, how it's applied, And then you have the surprising creativity. Because of interleaving topics spans unexpected connections, strengthening both memory and idea generation. Because you do interleaving, reading in parallel, you can see connections as while you're learning that the other people, including the Anki user, won't be able to see that. So the SuperMemo user has an advantage of creativity, reduced burnout, less repetitions, has priority, so gets most value first, and enhances curiosity. One very general example. The user finds themselves combining insights from a history article about the Industrial Revolution with a coding article about automation, linked to a unique perspective on tech progress. That, hey, perhaps isn't related because it's history, but the Industrial Revolution, what happened is that they did a lot of automation. And you're going to get a lot of insights that is not directly related to coding or mathematics, but, oh wow, makes total sense, sparks your interest, and is, wow, it's like now I have a mental tunnel that is justified at some degree that, wow, makes sense how we come to this place, kind of thing. Or just because you know how it was before and after, you can appreciate the difference. You can value the automation, stuff like that. It's because I don't want to go into coding per se. Then, key distinctions in daily learning. Daily commitment. So now we will go the other way around. So instead of each person, what they do is, for a topic, each person, what happens. So daily commitment. The Anki user manages flashcards queue. The do cards, or the relearning queue, or the new. Because in Anki you have new cards. Blue, green, red, to simplify. Then, SuperMemo user manages reading extracts and items above, more flexible. That, yeah, I have the outstanding queue, the priority queue, the queue. There are more queues, by the way. But the point is not that. The point is that the focus is on the reading. I'm making extracts and consolations. The minimal flow of incremental reading. In Anki, you don't have that. You only have the do counts because you only have flashcards. The traditional person, so the crammer, may read chapters for weeks and that's it. It's stuck. It's always repeating the same thing and forgetting eventually. There's no progress. It hit the ceiling already. And the person who has the normal approach, so almost nothing, just based on needed, I will check it online, study sporadically, guided mostly by fleeting interest. That day, for whatever reason today I had, I go all this, I go to Wikipedia, and for whatever reason, hey, what is that? Boom. And you link another link, hyperlink from Wikipedia, you end up to a different place in Wikipedia, and you spend some hours, let's say. That will be the daily commitment, but it's not even daily. It's when this happens. So the mental experience. The SuperMemo user fosters synergy, as we have seen before. Incremental reading approach can produce consistent light bulb. That I see the light. Makes sense now. Moments, not just test-oriented knowledge. SuperMemo daily routine is flexible reading pipeline, not just flashcard treadmill. I like this expression. You know that the quotes are always AI. Well, not always, but most of the time it's AI. I like this expression. I will have never come to this myself. And this is, you know a hamster with the wheel? Same thing. It's flashcard, 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 flashcard. In Anki, that's all you do. It's not that the flashcard, it's not that the Anki user only does that. Nope. He will have to read and then Ankify what he wants to remember out of what he reads, usually manually by copy pasting or using add-ons. But basically, it's this: in Anki, you do spaced repetition with flashcards. There's nothing else. There's no reading. There's no learning. So the daily experience for the Anki user is just the flashcard treadmill. Then, long-term gains. Long-term, like not in the 2 years we have seen, but any. Long-term. More general knowledge. The SuperMemo user integrates reading and focused topics with space reviews. Less reading. Freed from repeated cramming and searching for earlier knowledge. Here we are including the Anki user. And then better problem solving. Cross-domain synergy. Bridging seemingly unrelated fields becomes second nature. That, oh yeah, I have history and mathematics, or even coding with logic and so on. That can be unrelated, but I make the connections. It becomes synergetic. And this becomes second nature. That, hey, for me it's not a problem having. That's why, as a SuperMemo user, I could have concepts of health, education, science, but at the end of the day, everything is intermingled. That is just my definition. So, if it's history with coding, it's a golden nugget. You know? A more concrete example. As a SuperMemo user, after 2 years, we have done until 2 years. So after 2 years, navigates tasks requiring math, coding, and a bit of history seamlessly, retaining key details others must constantly look up. And this includes the Anki user. Because the Anki user doesn't have this mental network, mental framework. Those are the facts about math, the deck about math. That's the deck about coding. You don't have this interconnection. It's like more discrete, that this is that, and so on. It's very high level. It's very hard to describe this. And the only way to actually understanding it is by experiencing it. Yes. So now, pause this video, start using SuperMemo for 2 years, and come back, please. Yeah, I know, I'm joking. I know that is a very hard ask, but it is what it is. There's no way I can use Anki now, as after being a SuperMemo user for years. Then, let's do a quick summary and contrast every case. From the normal person to the SuperMemo user. So the learning approach, ad hoc, so based on need, traditional learner will reread and highlight. The Anki user will do just flashcards with spaced repetition. And SuperMemo user will do incremental reading, which includes spaced repetition, and then priority management, which, again, priority management is part of the incremental reading. But I want to emphasize that, this is done well. If you don't do if that SuperMemo user doesn't do priorities well, it won't be the case, what we have said. It will be half-baked experience. Ring integration, the SuperMemo user. The Anki user, rarely. Because you do flashcards. It's, oh shoot, let me go to the source where I have Ankified that, and let me read this. Because this is, again, already outside of Anki, what you're doing. The knowledge retention is the strongest in SuperMemo user across multiple domains. Then the Anki user will be good for QAs. So, if you provide me the question, I will be able to provide the answer. But if you provide me a case, I have to resolve and apply the knowledge I have memorized. Not necessarily it's that good. The traditional learner, let's say medium. It's exam-driven, and even though you cram, it's very low quality, something gets in your brain. For instance, I have forgotten most of what I did in history. in the school about the Spanish monarchy, all of that. I remember some names because they keep repeating the names, just changing the number. But for whatever reason, I always remember the discovery of America, 1492. I don't know why, always was stuck in my brain with no effort. One example. The additional guy, learner, will have some facts here and there, but very low, and the normal person will be anecdotal because it distracts with their feelings, something personal, and they, because of that, it's memorable, anecdotal. That's very interesting. What's the daily motivation? The SuperMemo user is the curiosity and synergy led. That, hey, it's because it's something related of what I know. I want to know that. It's just, since I already started, it's just following the flow. Since I already have knowledge, and I have knowledge gaps, knowledge holes, I want to fill in these holes because it's pleasurable for me. I have this curiosity, and I rinse and repeat. Because doing that, I discover more in parallel, and I will have more holes, and it's a never-ending story. The Anki user, the daily motivation to use Anki will be to keep up with the queues, the do count. The average Anki user will do that, sadly. Then, again, you only have flashcards. Then, necessity-based, you don't have any novelty. So what you have in Anki is what you have put manually in Anki. You don't have learning material in Anki. Then, for the traditional learner, it's just necessity. Oh, I need to do this because my work, I have to do this paper in the PhD. Oh yeah, in this experiment, I have to use the chi-square or whatever, statistical analysis. Oh, let me check it again because now I have the need. In the sense that if I don't have any requirement for reviewing the chi-square, I won't do it. Because my motivation is just extrinsic. I do not care about the chi-square. I only care about doing my job. That was required. I refresh how to do it. I spend my time. I do it again, and I will forget it again because I don't care. And the normal person is just interest-based. That, hey, it's about Minecraft. Hey, here you go. That it's about math. Boring. I pass. Kind of thing. And then the creativity potential. The highest is, as we have seen, from the SuperMemo user. Because you are like omniscient, kind of thing, omniscient. Not fully, but you have a huge overview of many topics. You have a lot of connection of that knowledge, highly applicable across domain. The Anki user will be tired to discrete facts. Then, traditional learner, it just focus on one area, chi-square, or whatever I do, what I need that time. And the normal person is unpredictable. It's random. That for whatever reason today, I see the light and I had a crazy idea about whatever. It's absolutely random and unpredictable. So the conclusion is, no one size fits all. So I know it's kind of cliche, but let me start here. Everyone's learning journey differs, but the synergy from SuperMemo's incremental reading and specification stands out. Meaning that everyone has their own method, their own way, and they can achieve success. I'm not telling that if you don't use SuperMemo, you won't achieve success or good quality. It's just you will be limited by the method you're using. Meaning that if you have used SuperMemo, it's very likely you will have achieved a higher degree of knowledge or more coherent knowledge instead. But again, incremental reading is not for everyone. Concrete life changes. Less time is wasted relearning. The daily minor eureka moments from interleaving topics and a more enjoyable study routine. So, it's more efficient, the SuperMemo user is more efficient in his learning because of time. He spends less time on relearning. The SuperMemo user chooses what to remember and also prioritizes the reading. Hey, I want to read this. I change this down. Hey, this is not that important. Then I will see it again. I have done interruption. So therefore, I have forgotten details. I want to remember that. You do this systematically. And long term, The SuperMemo guy has invested the least time possible for the same result. No, no, not exactly. The same result is understanding that. But it's not that it understands this better because it has more connections, it's more aware of across domains, like unlike the Anki user or others. It's like the retrievability is higher, even higher than the Anki user. Slightly. Here is just slightly, but even above the Anki user. Is that is in any single domain. You spend less time, the quality is better, and it's more long lasting. It will be harder to forget it. So it happens to be that the best way is also the most pleasurable way. Wow. Final thought. When comparing four learning types, we have seen the SuperMemo user's daily progress, associative leaps, let me put this in bold, can yield the biggest shift in how they gather and retain knowledge. This will change your life. This will change how you learn. Once you have used SuperMemo long enough, 2 years, let's say, as the example, that you actually get it, there's no way back. There's no way I want to go back to just using flashcards without the incremental learning part. Or there's no way I want to move on from spaced repetition. It's extremely inefficient. It's, like, I will put it on the editing, the graph, I mean, that every time is exponential growth, exponential. So traditional method, okay, it's more than the one that does nothing, the normal, okay. The Anki user has tremendous more potential than the crammer, but the SuperMemo user has a tremendous exponentially more value than the Anki user. And it changes across domains. That means that even, for instance, just an overview, because I want to extend on that. It's not just learning. This will change how you consume media, how you, for instance, movies, or TV shows, or you listen to podcasts, or even relationship with friends, because it becomes a lifestyle. You do interruptions, you do interleaving with in your life, and this great awareness and the daily pleasure of you're hooked. Incremental reading changed my life for the better. Anki did not. Anki did change my life. Yes, I was getting better grades and I was retaining information, but not to a degree of life changing. It's like I'm a different version of myself with incremental reading. I cannot achieve that with Anki. Then, to summarize, that will be a concrete example of what will be the difference in the flow. That we haven't seen that, strictly speaking. But I want to mention this more explicit in case you're not familiar with the spaced repetition or incremental reading. So the normal guy reads a programming article, can recall specifics next month. Forgotten. Oh yeah, I remember I read that article. Forgot the contents. The traditional method guy highlights a textbook or an article, whatever, and remembers for tomorrow quiz but forgets in a week. More or less. The Anki user creates flashcards on syntax rules, diligently review daily for 10 minutes, 1 hour, that is the whatever the quantity is. The fact is that is diligent means it's systematic. That's a good thing, it's systematic. But only covers the syntax rules and all of that. Doesn't cover the thinking part. The SuperMemo user imports a programming article, processes this in small bits, 1 or 2 paragraphs every time, not every day, natural day, every day that disappears, so every time, and starts forming incrementally question answers from the text. So there's forgetting memory consolidation every time because they sleep and you do priorities and so on. So I hope the 3 and 4 are the hardest to distinguish, especially if you have never used incremental reading. It will be harder to distinguish that. But those 2 are a massive difference. At the end of the day, in practice, bro, no chance. No chance. So the best you can do, if you didn't yet, start with SuperMemo. If you are still a noob, This course is for you. You will get to where you want. Basic usage, fluent user, or a master user. It's your choice. But I will provide you everything you need to reach my level. Yeah, because I'm limited to my level, basically. And remember, you can get SuperMemo 10% off using my link. The only way you can save $7. So that has been more or less the learning journey compared with normal, traditional Anki in the sense of a spaced repetition only, and SuperMemo in the sense of incremental reading. Very high level overview. Let me know if that was enough, and see you incrementally.